Okay, so today we have a 2005 Honda S2000. Still got an F22C in it, just a factory engine. But the transmission's out because we're going to be putting a Turbo 400 on this today. We're going to be going over the parts and just what it's going to take to get this in here. Did have a CD009, but now it's going to get adapter plates from ATF so that we can go to a Turbo 400 transmission. So ATF will send you this adapter plate so that you can bolt your bell housing to the motor. And then they send this really nice billet adapter for the torque converter. And then we've got a PTC torque converter over there and a really hardcore Turbo 400 JEGS transmission rated for like 1400 horse. And then this car makes like 500 horsepower. So it should be good. All right, so included with this kit, you have your adapter plate, and then it comes with some hardware. We have 6 bolts here. These are actually what are going to hold the transmission to the plate. And then we have these 3 bolts here that are actually going to go ahead and bolt this plate to the motor. This one extra long one here is actually going to come in from the back of the motor. I believe it's in this area here. And it's going to hold this hole right here. We'll go ahead and I'll get the first couple bolts in. Go ahead and get started. Now to start, we did go ahead and we have this subframe lowered down a little bit so that we were able to get that other transmission out. And that is also making it a little bit easier for us to get this plate in place here. Bolt here. So as you can see here, we've got the top 2 bolts. They're going to go right into the top of that motor, and that's where we'll get started. Go ahead and cut it off. So we've got the plate bolted up in there. We've got the 3 on the back of the motor, and then the one that came with that's supposed to come through from the other side is too short. The bolt that came with the kit is 2 1/4, but we actually want a 3-inch bolt because it doesn't engage the threads in the plate when we put it through the block. It's too short. So we're going to go ahead and get a 3-inch bolt for that and continue forward. Okay, so we just want to give an update here as we're going. When you go to put this adapter plate on, you do want to make sure that you do have to shave this section down. Otherwise, it will touch and the motor won't turn over. So you want to shave that down pretty good amount. We tried to get it almost level. It's probably 1/8 of an inch off of that. And then we found a pore, basically where that bolt goes through is hollow. So totally fine. It won't do anything to the motor because that is just on the back side there. But you can see we went a little deep on that one. So when it comes to putting this plate in, we have to take off the top plate because the holes to bolt it to the motor are underneath. There's no provisioning here to do it from this side. So we're going to go ahead and take out the 6 Allen head bolts that are in there. We've already removed 5 of them. This last one here, they are 8mm here. So we're just going to go ahead. They weren't super duper tight. So we're just using an impact to pull them out real slow. Go ahead and pull that one out there. So once all of those are out, you can go ahead and separate that top plate so that you can gain access to the actual holes that we're going to use to mount this lower plate to the engine. So this kit did come with ARP flex plate bolts, so we went ahead and put a little bit of blue Loctite on there. We're going to go ahead and get this plate lined up and bolted onto the motor right there. So we'll go ahead, and factory torque spec for flywheel bolts is 94 foot-pounds. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so we were able to go ahead and set the bell housing. It is a detachable bell, SFI. And we don't have it pushed all the way back. We've left some gap just because once we get it on those dowels, it's very difficult to pull back off because they are very tight fit. But we're looking at bolts here. The bolts included with this kit here, this ATF kit, for this specific bell housing kind of too short. So we're gonna go, this bolt here is 1.5 inches. We're gonna go to a 2-inch bolt. It'll go from the bell into the plate. And then that one that comes from the front side of the motor, that bolt, we're gonna go to a 3-inch bolt, and then we'll get full engagement. As far as clearancing goes, this car was again already massaged for the CD09. So we've got good clearance on that passenger side. The driver's side, actually, because they hit here, it pushed that end forward and we couldn't clear the bell housing. So we actually had to hit it back from the front to push that out so we could get this bell on. Also, it is extremely important that you do lower your subframe quite a bit, probably about 2 inches all the way around. We took the center bolts out, but the bolts that you need to know that you can take out is this rearmost one, this forward one just behind that front control arm, and the one in the center. Those are the 3 bolts that you can lower the subframe with. This center one here was the shortest. It's still pretty long, but we completely removed it on both sides. Those back bolts were like 12 inches long, and this front bolt here is like 10 inches long. So those are the ones that you can start unwinding to lower this down, and the center one's completely out. But other than that, as far as clearancing goes, we've got enough space. As you can see, this is where the bell housing ends, and it doesn't seem to touch, but you might have to hit that with a hammer a little bit. All right, so TH400 is now up in the pocket. Subframe is still lowered, but we've got it pushed up to the plate. We've got enough space in there for our trans lines. We did have to hit this side in. Cable's gonna work out good. We've got good clearance. We're gonna start putting the bolts in, and then we'll start tightening the door converter down. Measure for that spacing. Over here, smacked up on this area here for the trans brake wiring, because it's still sitting down about 1.5 inches. But as far as space goes, nothing seems to touch. So that's good. On this side here, we had to hit this area back from where it was hit with the CD09, but it's gonna clear too. All right, so we have actually mounted the 400 up in the tunnel. Again, we did have to clearance it some. This bolt, the lower, we had to put in before we set the transmission here. And same thing on that passenger side, the center bolt. The lower we could get to easily, but there's one up here that we had to set in because otherwise it wouldn't go in and clear the section of the tunnel. Other than that, we've got it sitting on a pole jack right now. We've got to figure out trans mount situation, but good clearance for the cooler lines, good clearance for the shift cable, and then we just bolt down the torque converter. But as far as fit and finish goes, there's quite a bit of space here. It will go up just a little bit more. We're actually putting the subframe up now, and these rears are 43 foot-pounds. The two 19 millimeters are 85. All right, so we ended up using the CD09 trans mount for the time being. Obviously, it's going to have to be modified, but we've got the subframe bolted back up to the car. Again, rears 17 millimeter, 45 foot-pounds. Front 85 foot-pounds, actually 19 millimeter. These were 43. Everything's back in tight, clearanced. Good space for the shift cable here on the driver's side. Good space for the cooler lines down that passenger side. We can reach everything. So we'll just modify the transmission mount, or we'll go to a shorter transmission mount on the transmission itself.